This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome back to the Warner Brothas Podcast. I'm Kyle, joined today by my brother Keenan, joined by Tim and Brandon, White Warner Brothas, some would say. Welcome back. This is our last two divisions. We're going to start today with the NFC North.
Yeah.
AFC North following this. Awards and predictions for the playoffs following this. Keenan's QB tiers just dropped today. So we've got a ton of NFL content coming out as the kickoff starts, really. We are 24 and a half hours away from kickoff. I can't believe it. We're finally here. Feels like Christmas Eve right now. Then, of course, we get the Friday night game. Enough talking out of me, fellas. How we doing?
Good, ready to get going. I'm truly just ready to get rolling.
It's like Christmas Eve, night before football.
Truly is. Truly is.
Yeah, it does feel like Christmas Eve. I am ready to roll.
Yes, I am ready to get into these divisions. So first order was Timmy, right? We had Timmy, then me, then Brandon and Kyle, I think, on this one.
That is correct.
NFC North, arguably the most competitive division in all of football. Timmy, what team do you got?
I've got the Green Bay Packers, which are a super fun team. My statement will not involve Micah Parsons, however. It will involve the offensive side of the ball. The Green Bay Packers will have 4 pass-catching players above 500 yards, but none of them over 1,000 yards.
Taking a sip of that. I think you've got Christian Watson coming back later on in the season, so I don't think will eclipse 1,000, but I do think that he can get over the 500 for sure. Aiden Reed, I definitely think can get over that. Tucker Kraft was someone who was used heavily in the offense, so I think he could. Even Josh Jacobs, they might even be able to have 5 because Jacobs caught the ball well of the backfield last year. I'm high on Matthew Golden. I think he can get over 1,000, which is why I'm not taking a shot. I think the guy who is going to get over 1,000, if there would be there. And I also didn't even mention Romeo Doubs, too. Like, they have, honestly, you could say there are 7 players that could get over 500 that doesn't eclipse 1,000. I'm taking only a sip just because I feel like Matthew Golden can get to that 1,000 mark. So not a full shot, but a sip for me.
Yeah, I'm going to take a sip as well. I do think multiple players can get over 500 yards. I do actually agree with Keenan. I think Golden can do it, but I also think Tucker Kraft also has an outside chance. They love him on screens. I know Jordan Love talked about all offseason getting him involved more in the offense. He's like a security blanket. He's just super athletic. Like he kind of runs like a wide receiver and plays like a wide receiver, just with a bigger frame. So I mean, I think if he gets in the ballpark of 120 to 130 targets, which I think is a slight possibility, I think he could eclipse 1,000 yards too. So I'll take a decent little sip on that, but nothing too crazy.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm taking a sip as well. You see it often with these like receiver by committee type of offenses. Like the wealth definitely gets spread around. Really don't know who's getting it game to game. But in a 17-game season, I could definitely see one of these guys eclipsing 1,000. So I love the premise of it because, I think you're going to see several of these guys like get good yardage and get good stats. Similar to like with touchdowns, there's probably going to be one guy who gets it more than the others, though it'll be spread around. So, I kind of agree with the guys here.
Timmy, your thoughts?
I think if I had tweaked it and said 5 players get over 500 and only one of them gets over 1,000, most people would be taking a shot here. I think Jaden Reed, he's still got this injury that's kind of been plaguing him this entire offseason, so we don't even know what he's going to look like week 1. I agree with Keenan. I think the best bet at going over 1K would be Matthew Golden. I think they brought him in as a first-round wide receiver, first one in a long time, so he would be the one for me, but I just don't see it for Matthew, so I'm actually going to take a shot of this. I think there will be 4 or 5 guys in that 5 to 800 range, and that's going to make up all of Jordan Love's passing yards here. So,
Last year, just for reference, Jaden Reed, 857, Kraft, 707, Watson, 620, Romeo Dobbs, 601, and then they had Dontavian Wicks at 415 and Josh Jacobs at 342. So last year, they nailed what Timmy had said, 4 people over 500, but no one over 1,000.
Matt Crescenzi,
so just for reference.
Matt Crescenzi at 257, Keenan. You assume.
Shout out to Matt Crescenzi. That's such a random drop. Shout out to Matt Crescenzi. Anyways, go on, Tim.
Sure.
I do think I had this plotted out before the Micah trade. I have the Packers winning their division at 12-5. I have them as the 2 seed in the NFC. I think this is going to be a really good season. The biggest thing is, does Jordan Love miss any time this year? If he's just healthy for the full year, I think this is a Super Bowl team. I wouldn't call him a Super Bowl favorite, but definitely a Super Bowl team.
I'm going to bounce right off of that because I also had them winning the division pre-Micah at 13. Yes, pause. But I had them winning the division pre-Micah trade. I had them at 13-4 at that point, and I'm keeping them at that 13-4 range. I think that they have all the tools to win the division. With them, the Vikings and the Lions being better last year, they have a third-place level schedule, even though obviously they play tough divisions. They have 6 tough division games and going outside. I think the Packers, this is a year for them. They can kind of put everything together, and I think they think it's a year for them. Why you trade for Micah Parsons, you think you can go get it right now, and I think they can get it right now too. So I have them 13-4 winning the division.
I also have the Green Bay Packers winning the division. I have them at 12-5. I love their defense. I think their defense is super underrated. I love their skill groups. I love Josh Jacobs in the running game. I think bringing in Matthew Golden is really going to open up the offense. And I, especially now with Micah Parsons, like I had them winning pre-trade before that. And I think now they're even better. So I will confidently ride with the Green Bay Packers this year.
Hey,
Okay.
The WBP family is in agreement here. I also have the Packers winning the division. I actually had them winning prior to the Micah trade too at 11-6, but I bumped them up a win after the trade to 12-5. So 3 of us all have 12-5. Keenan's got the 13. Look, man, I nearly picked this team to win the division last year. Like they were my sleeper last year. I think I picked them to win the division the year before in Jordan Love's first full year as a starter. So I'm always trying to figure out a way to like shoehorn this team in because they're a quintessential dark horse, really. And they're not really even a dark horse because they got such a good coach, so well coached, I should say. And then, Jordan Love's an emerging quarterback. They're well coached. They've got a better defense this year, obviously with Micah's. I don't know. The tools are all there. I think the Lions are going to take a step down. We'll talk about them in a sec. I think it's all there for the Packers to at least make a run.
I agree. I think that the Packers are very live for a Super Bowl. I think all of us would have had them live for a Super Bowl pre-Micah trade, and no one's going to take them down after trading for Micah Parsons, though. Half of Cowboys Nation will let you know that they're just getting not a playoff performer. And fun news, Aaron Donald and Micah Parsons' first 4 playoff games together mirror each other quite a bit. Each only have 1 sack, a few tackles for loss, and you don't hear much about that from Aaron Donald. So anyways, I am next, and I got the Minnesota Vikings. And I have a statement here talking about Kevin O'Connell, and guys, what you're going to notice over the next little bit of time is Kyle getting progressively worse in health-wise. He thinks he's coming out with a cold and over 5. He's going to be like Ron.
Made it sound like I might pass away by the end of the day.
Yeah, it did. It's going to be like Rajon Rondo catching the flu mid-2K game. It's going to happen. It's crazy. But so I had the Minnesota Vikings, my statements around Kevin O'Connell, and this statement is, Kevin O'Connell is a top 5 coach, so the Vikings are a 10-win team.
I'll go first. Or go ahead, Timmy.
Sure. I'll take a sip. I think you could definitely make the argument for top 5. But I think similar to like fantasy football, a lot of these coaches, I would tier them out as like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And he would be tied with like 3 or 4 coaches in that next tier around 5. So I'll take a sip. He is a great coach, like without a doubt. He's taken these teams way higher than they should have. So he could prove us this year that he is a top 5 coach. If they make the playoffs, they have a nice double-digit win season. If they win a playoff game with J.J. McCarthy, I think I would be comfortable calling him a top 5 coach.
I'll take a shot of that. I don't care if it's Rumpelmans. I don't care if it's Jack Daniels, whatever it is. Just throw it my way. just send it my way. I think Kevin O'Connell is a top 5 coach. There's not very many guys I'd take over him. I also think Minnesota gets 10 wins this season. I'm high on Minnesota. I've talked about it before. I think J.J. McCarthy is a good quarterback. I think Kevin O'Connell will be able to get them to that double-digit win mark. So I'm all in on this statement.
Okay. Kyle, you?
I'm taking a sip. I agree word for word, bar for bar with what Tim said. If O'Connell gets them to 10 wins this year, especially like if you go Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, 10 wins, like we can't argue that. Almost regardless of playoff success, we can't really argue that. My thing would be just in that division, you've got LaFleur and Campbell right there who would also have arguments at top 5, and you can make arguments for them not being top 5. There's at least probably 10 to 12 very quality coaches that you can make an argument for. So I'll take a sip. But again, if he gets 10 wins with J.J. McCarthy, by all means, what argument could I have if you're going 10 wins, double-digit wins with 3 different quarterbacks in consecutive years? Can't argue that.
Yeah. I have a sip as well. I think if he does it, I think if the statement is true, and he actually is a top 5 coach, and then they do go to 10 wins because of it, then it's for sure. I think he's solidified in that top 5 to me. I'm taking a sip just because they're in such obviously a difficult division, and they have a tough schedule, and just everything about that with a new quarterback, obviously a rookie. So doing that again and again, it makes it very difficult. I'll bounce right into my record here. I have them 6-11, but I could see them getting to 10. And it literally just has to do with the fact that someone's coming in last in this division. And I think when you go down their schedule, it's just a lot of tough games. So you lean okay, maybe the veteran leadership of other teams because of the fact that they do have veteran players and a veteran coaching staff, but they don't have a veteran quarterback yet. So you lean maybe those 50-50 games, but I think they're not going to be a slouch. I think you have to go into Minnesota, or when Minnesota's coming to you guys, wherever that is, you've got to take them serious or they'll get you out of there. I got them 6-11, and it's not because I feel like they're only a 6-11 team. I just feel like somebody in that division's got to be below 500, and they can't just all be 8-9. So.
Yeah, I'll take the baton there because I agree with Keenan. I actually got them at 7-10. My thing is, and I think I've mentioned this before, they're too good to go 6-11, right? 7's my base average team, right? But I agree with Keenan. Someone's got to be bad in this division. I'm going to take the team with a redshirt freshman. I am highly skeptical of success with J.J. McCarthy in his first year. Again, if he was taking reps behind Darnold last year and was 17 games on the bench, and then he's coming in, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre style, I'd probably be with y'all as far as J.J. McCarthy's success. But the fact that it's been 1.5 years, 2 years since he's taken a real snap, can't really get behind that. Would not be surprised, though, if they do have success. And then maybe if it's the Bears or if it's the Lions having a season from hell. Obviously, we all have the Packers winning the division. But if someone's got to lose, yeah, exactly like Keenan said, the Vikings would be my pick.
I think this will still be a good football team. I do actually still have them double digits. I got them 10-7, last team in the playoffs, 7 seed. I think they'll be a solid team just because Brian Flores does get the most out of his defense. It should be a good defensive unit again. And then O'Connell does his thing on offense. It's not just J.J. McCarthy. He'll have a lot of other moving pieces here. And with Justin Jefferson as your best wide receiver in the league, then it's going to be a lot easier. So I do still think it'll be a good team. I do agree that the division is very tough this year. So it could just swing the wrong way for them, and then that brings them down to 7 or 8 wins, and then they're outside the playoffs.
Yeah, I actually also had Minnesota at 10-7. I think the combination of the skill talent on offense, I think once Addison comes back, I mean, you're rolling out a core of Jefferson, Addison, Thielen, Hawkinson at tight end, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason at running back, top 5 offensive line. I think J.J. McCarthy was pro-ready coming out of Michigan. I understand a lot of people don't really like to get into that conversation because of the offense that he was in, because he wasn't asked to throw the ball 30 times a game. I'm confident in his ability. And then I agree with Timmy. I think any Brian Flores defense is going to be good. Regardless of a tough division, I think they will have enough talent to compete. I think they'll have enough talent to win games.
Question for Tim and Brandon. What do you think this offense looks like with J.J. McCarthy? You think it's similar to Michigan where it's more run heavy?
I think it's a lot more like play action. I think I'm expecting somewhere kind of like 60-40, maybe 55-45, somewhere in that ballpark. I actually think he's going to use his legs a lot too. I actually think I would pencil him in for like 300 to 400 rushing yards, which is also something you didn't see in Michigan, but he's got wheels, kind of low key. So like, I think a lot of like bootleg play action. I also wouldn't be surprised if they just let him kind of run 4 wide, 5 wide, whatever, and just air it out a little bit.
I think we see an offense pretty similar to last year. I think if Sam Darnold can do it, J.J. McCarthy can do it, honestly. So I do like Mason. I think he is actually an upgrade here. And with Jones being an older running back, I think that's like the perfect guy to get in there. So I do like that. So they might run it a little bit more than last year, but I don't think O'Connell sees this as much of a downgrade to Sam Darnold. And I think he's going to work his magic.
I like it. All right. So next is Brandon. And Brandon, what team do you got, and what's your statement for us?
I have the Detroit Lions. And my statement, I'm actually going to go with a player statement. And that is pertaining to Jamison Williams. And that statement is going to be Jamison Williams has north of 1,400 receiving yards this season and leads the Lions in reception yards.
So I'm going to take a taste test sip of this. I don't think he gets to 1,400, but I think there is a world where he could lead the Lions in receiving yards. So I think a lot of people are going to try to take Amon-Ra away because he's such a good route runner. You got him underneath, but he can also get you over the top if necessary. And you're going to have Jamison Williams kind of maybe in the slot if you can line him up to try to get him deep, depending on what kind of coverages. You'll move him around a lot. So I think that he could be a guy that goes for maybe 1,100, 1,150, 1,200 maybe, and then Amon-Ra goes for a little bit over 1,000, and he like leads the team. So I'm going to take a taste test sip of this. My money, if I had to bet it, would be on Amon-Ra to lead, but I do think it's in the realm of possibility that Jamison Williams could lead the team in receiving yards.
I'll go real quick. I got to go to the bathroom on this. Unless Amon-Ra is injured for 3 to 7 games, I can't really see it just because he's such a complete receiver. He's a true number 1 receiver. Jamison Williams, I don't want to call him a gadget receiver because that's unfair, but he's definitely an X factor type receiver, right?
Feels like a young Tyreek Hill-ish. Like if you remember what Tyreek Hill was with Alex Smith before Mahomes got there and he really blew up, kind of in like the super great speed, use him in the return game, but like developing as like a true wide receiver kind of thing. Go on.
Yeah. And if he's got true route running ability to make him that complete receiver, then I mean, we're talking about someone who could eventually one day be like top 5, top 3. He's got that kind of talent, but I don't quite see that this year. Maybe he proves us wrong. And if he does prove us wrong, then who knows about what we think about the Packers. If you got Amon-Ra and Jamison playing at that level and Jared Goff playing well enough, it might just be scary hours on offense for Detroit.
I'm going to take a healthy sip here. I'm kind of leaning towards a shot. I think that with the absence of Ben Johnson, this team might be losing games more often or being in losing situations, which means they might throw more, which means that it's got to go somewhere. So I could very well see 2 well over 1,000-yard wide receivers. 1,400 is a little bit high. I think if you had set it at like 12 or 13, I probably would have just taken the shot. But with Amon-Ra, he's going to get his, that Laporta's still involved. Jameer out of the backfield still involved. It's still going to go around. So I'll take a healthy sip. I still think he can be. I really do think he can lead this team in receiving yards as the deep threat here. So I like him.
Yeah, I'm also going to take a sip of that statement. 1,400 was definitely a little high. I think if he catches about 20 more passes, maybe 25 more passes, I think he has an outside shot at it. He had 58 catches last season, 1 yard over 1,000. I think he's super talented. I really do. I mean, he was a top 15 pick for a reason. I think he should have went higher in that draft coming out of Alabama. I love him as a player. I think he's got a ton of untapped potential. They started using him more last year on like crossers and kind of short to intermediate routes versus just sending them deep and chucking it off. And I also think too, I wouldn't be surprised like if Detroit went a little more pass heavy this season. And what I mean by that is like kind of getting away from David Montgomery a little bit, featuring Jahmyr Gibbs more, and then dropping back and throwing the ball 35 times a game. Like I could see an outside shot of that happening. I could also see Jamison having 1,200 yards, 1,250, and Amon-Ra having like 1,150, 1,200.
Yeah.
If he does beat him, I think it's going to be by no more than 100 yards. But I do think both of these guys go over 1,000 yards again.
I think it'd look kind of like what Juju and Antonio Brown, the year that Juju won like the best receiver on the team. Like I think it could look like that, where you have Antonio Brown still at peak level Antonio Brown or right near it, and then Juju Smith, just because of the fact that Antonio Brown's so good, Amon-Ra in that case there just takes it to another level. Since I'm talking, I'm going to quickly just say this. I have the Lions at 11-6. I have them still making the playoffs. I think that we all have the Packers winning the division. I think the Lions are too good defensively. Though they lost their coordinators, they're getting so much back defensively just from them being healthy. Aiden Hutchinson was looking like he was on the way to break the sack record last year. That was one of my bold predictions for the year, was Aiden Hutchinson was getting a sack in every game. But so I think that the Lions are 11-6. I think they're too talented not to. I think they're too talented not to make the playoffs, personally.
Yeah, I also have Detroit at 11-6. I agree with Keenan. I think they're way too talented. I love the additions that they made on defense as well too. I love the signing of DJ Reed.
Yes.
They brought in Marcus Davenport as a secondary rusher to kind of help Aiden Hutchinson out. I like what they've done on the interior with DJ Reader. Like I think they have a very talented secondary with Brian Branch, Terrion Arnold, and Ennis Rakestraw from Missouri. I think the offensive line's still going to be good. I think it's going to take a step back, definitely, because of the bodies that they lost.
Yeah, Frank Ragnow not being there is going to be extremely tough.
Yeah, but I think they have enough talent on offense. Like, I mean, if you're telling me you have a big three of Gibbs, Jamison, and Amon-Ra, and then you have Laporta as a tight end, like
Montgomery still in that mess, and then obviously a very veteran quarterback in Jared Goff that we all believe is roughly around the top 10. I have him in the top 10, but at least top 10 adjacent. So
yeah, so I would be very surprised. I think they have enough talent to where they can overcome like the coordinator deficit, unless their new OC was a passing game coordinator last season. So I don't really foresee it going terrible, but in the event that it did, then I think they could struggle.
Yeah.
Tim, go ahead.
I think the Lions are still going to be a very good football team. 15 wins, I don't think is in the cards at all. I actually have them 12-5. I still think they'll win a lot of games this year. So I do have them regressing by 3 games this year. But if the defense just stays healthy and they have a potential defensive player of the year candidate in Aiden Hutchinson, then I think that's good enough to get them to 12. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, this team reminds me a lot of that Philly team that lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and then came back minus both of their coordinators. That team had a lot of talent, right? That team, I think we were still favorable on them, but we all said like, hey, it's going to be tough on them without these 2 coordinators. I feel that way about this Lions team. They also have, I believe, 4 less games indoors. Last year, I believe they had 14 out of 17 games indoors, which is why I was so high on them and picked them for the division, even though I wanted to pick the Packers. So they're not going to have that advantage this year. And they've got a super tough schedule. I would not be surprised if this ends up being an 8-win team, right? Especially if the Vikings pop a little bit, like you guys are saying. I actually have them at 10-7. I still have them in the playoffs. I think it's going to be a struggle, and I would not be surprised, though, if it goes the other way.
The Eagles that year, after the coordinators, they started 10-1, and then they lost like 5 of their last 6, and then they got boat raced by the the Buccaneers in the playoffs. Yeah, Baker Mayfield went in there. It was one of Hurt's bad playoff games that he had. So, I mean, obviously that Eagles team, obviously super talented. They still did make the playoffs there and were able to play and do well. They started the year great, had that Chiefs game and then everything, and then just things went kind of downhill from there. But
that health,
we're all
the health influx on defense, though, like you guys said, like that's going to be their saving grace for sure, especially early on.
Yeah, I would be more apt to pick this team maybe to almost sneak like on the outside looking in, kind of like I had the Commanders in the playoffs. If they had all that health, like if they were healthy last year and they still ended the season the same way, like the coordinator's going down, but you just like Aiden Hutchinson alone, but it was so many players like mid-season and they were still winning games. So I just think that it's going to be a seesaw and kind of balance itself out. Last but not least, so we have Kyle, and last but not least, we have the Bears.
The Bears of Chicago.
Shout out Gino Lett.
Shout out Gino
And
Lett.
Joe
Shout out
Gagner.
Joe Gagner. Shout out all the Bears fans. Generic statement here, but this Bears team will be a team that nobody in the NFL wants to play by the time we get to the end of the season. My reasoning, they have all the tools. They have everything, whether it's offense, defense, allegedly coaching, we'll see. But if everything clicks, yeah, maybe they're not the Packers, maybe they're not the Lions, but you're not going to want to fucking see them. Like in boxing or MMA, we call that the boogeyman, right? You don't want to face them. You don't want to take that L. You don't want to face them because you might get injured. Like I see the Bears kind of being that sort of team. What do y'all think?
I would say I'll take a shot of it because I don't think that necessarily means they have to be a playoff team, but that means like for say a Vikings team, Timmy and Brandon both have them going 10-7. The Vikings, say seeing them in week 15, I don't know the exact schedule, but saying that's like a goodness gracious, we've got to deal with the Bears this week. Like they're kind of rolling, like they're or whatnot. They're playing good. There's complimentary football going on there, so there's a lot that I do like about the Bears. I think that they've definitely taken steps in the right direction in this offseason. I think DeAndre Swift could have like an actual good year running. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Ben Johnson uses him. Obviously, we saw the way that he was able to use Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in his offense. Caleb Williams has more weapons around him now. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the Bears are going to do. And I think by week 13, 14, 15, they're going to be a team that no one really wants to see, especially if you're vying for a playoff spot, as they should be vying for a playoff spot as well. So they're going to have desperation added on to the fact that they're just going to be a buttoned up team by that point in the season. So I'm taking a shot of it.
I'll definitely take a heavy sip on this one as well. And I think that's going to be defensively why that they don't want to play him. I think this defense is super underrated.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people think it's going to be like a top tier defense, but I could very well see it being one. And that's that NFC North toughness of the cold weather teams is just going to be tough to play against when it does come to December, January time. So I can definitely take a heavier sip. Just don't really know what the offense is going to look like. Teams are going to not want to play them because they might lose the game 14-10. But if the offense is rolling, then they're really going to be scared to play them.
Yeah, I'm going to take a sip as well. Probably a little bit on the stronger side, more so because of the defense. I think there's still a lot of question marks about the offense. There's a lot of unknown with the offense. And I'm just not comfortable at this point just thinking that, hey, everything's going to click. I think the defense is going to keep them in a lot of games, though.
Yeah. So I'll take a shot of my statement because I think that's exactly the team they're going to be. Don't know if they'll be in the playoffs. Don't know if they'll be a contender. Even if the offense doesn't click, I think it'll be scary enough. There's enough talent. Caleb's got enough talent. This will probably be the best offensive line he's played under in a long time. So I think they'll be scary. I don't know if they'll be consistent. If they are consistent, let's say everything does click, what do you think their ceiling is?
would say their ceiling to me is 11-6. I think with the division of how tough the division is and how tough their division is, but also with the talent. That means Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, that connection has worked to start the season. Luther Burden as another option. Roma Dunze takes another step. DeAndre Swift's running well. They actually are protecting Caleb at a pretty solid amount. And then obviously defensively, they kind of just have shades of what they were doing last year because a lot of their defense, like a lot of these games last year, they were pretty close in. It was just that they couldn't keep Caleb upright and they also weren't really generating offense. So I would say 11-6, and then competing in a playoff game, whether they win or lose that game is whatever. But 11-6, competing in a playoff game would probably be their ceiling to me this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say 11-6. I could see 12-5 because if we're looking at this, like compare them to the Commanders from last year, the Commanders I believe were 11-win team last year, and I think this Bears roster is far and away better than the Commanders roster, minus the QB position. Their line is better, their defense is better, they've got better skill positions, minus maybe a running back, but with Ben Johnson coming in there, and first move they did was revamp the offensive line. Love that. I think 12 wouldn't be out of reason. I think it would be a very difficult 12, but that would be the absolute peak, the pinnacle of Chicago.
They've got some like cupcake-ish games and like sandwiched in with some tough games going on. But Brandon, you go on.
I think their ceiling's 11-6. Again, the defense. I don't really believe in their running game. I think if they get to 11-6, it's going to be a lot of passing. Even with a revamped offensive line. But I struggle seeing them go any higher than 11-6, just because I think there will be growing pains. So I think that's kind of like the highest to me that they could go.
They get to 12-5 with the schedule I'm looking at right now. That they're out dark horse for a Super Bowl, to be quite honest with you, because that's a very impressive 12 wins if they're getting through that.
And that's exactly why I asked Keenan, because I think the best version of this team, again, I'm skeptical of that happening this year, especially. I'm skeptical of Ben Johnson initially, but I'm willing to give him a chance. I'm usually skeptical of offensive head coaches for whatever reason. I don't know why that is, but I do think the best version of this team, if you're talking about a contender, we'll see with Caleb. Took 68 sacks last year. I don't see that happening. So I do think bare minimum, I'll get to my record, 9-8 for them. I think that's what they're going to be. I think they're going to be scary. But I think if they reach their top end, they reach their at least close to their peak. This is going to be someone you don't want to face December, January, close to a contender. One last thing I meant to add about the Lions. They swept the division last year. That's not going to happen this year. I meant to put that in the Lions segment, but forgot to say it. But I just want to throw that in as far as record goes too. But back to the Bears. Yeah, 9-8, scary ass team. You're not going to want to face them, and their top end could be very scary.
Yeah. I've got them 8-9, so Kyle and I are pretty much in lockstep kind of with our ideas of them. I do think that if they're able to compete at that high of a level, week in and week out, they could, if they can get to 11, 12 wins, they absolutely can compete for an NFC championship game. I mean, they see obviously their division, but outside of their division, they see Baltimore, Cincinnati. Giants is not going to be an easy game just because of that front, especially if that offensive line's not as good as it should be. San Francisco, Philadelphia. Like, they've got, outside of their division, they've got some tough games where if they can get you to 11 wins, I think that that's a team that can go. They showed that they could beat some of the best teams in the league already, but I got them 8-9. I think that this is going to be one of those years where they take a step in the right direction, but they're not there yet. And next year might be one of those years. Get another draft in them, get another year under Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams together. Next year could be that year they take that leap into being a borderline, if not a true contender.
Well, I do have them taking a step forward. I have the Bears at 7-10. I'm probably going to be the lowest on the Bears here. Like I said, I think the defense is going to be great. I have concerns about the running game. I don't think DeAndre Swift's a very good running back. He's had top-tier offensive lines before with Detroit and with Philly as well too, and was really like a league average, like replacement level running back. I do like what they did with the offensive line. I do still think Caleb Williams will take sacks this season, not because of the offensive line, but because of his kind of inability really to get the ball out.
And for people who don't know, Brandon's been low on Caleb Williams since college, so this isn't like a new thing for him. He feels he's a little bit lower on Caleb Williams than everybody was coming into the draft. So
yeah, I think like the mental miscues and stuff. Like I think he holds onto the ball for too long. I mean, you saw it a little bit in the preseason still too. Like that kind of takes time to get over with, but I think he'll eventually get, like past it. Like I think, yeah, there's a possibility. I like DJ Moore. Roma Dunze, the jury's still out on him. I think he's super talented. Like obviously a second-year receiver, you would expect a big jump. He wasn't great last season. Luther Burden too. Like I think he's got a ton of talent. I think it mainly depends on Caleb. I think how far they go is based off of Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I will say, I could see them in Minnesota. I think there's a world where them and Minnesota swap places. Where like the JJ McCarthy thing just doesn't work out, and Minnesota's 7-10, 6-11, and Chicago ends up 9-8, 10, 7, 11, 6. Like I think if Caleb Williams hits, then like I think that's a possibility, but I don't really see it happening.
Yeah, I think we see a similar thing. I have them at 8 and 9, so I'm actually one game ahead of Brandon. I do think Ben Johnson is going to be able to get the most out of this offense. But Caleb did have some flaws last year that weren't just Chicago flaws. Like you guys mentioned the sacks he took last year. He took, I believe, the most in football.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were ruled to be like his fault. Like he could have just ditched the ball, could have done something else. So unless he shakes that, I don't see them being a double-digit win playoff team or anything. So 8 and 9, I think, is reasonable. We did see this with Detroit with Dan Campbell's first few years with Ben Johnson there. The first year they were bad. The second year they were a borderline playoff team, and then the third year is where they really took it into the conference.
Yeah,
so,
they were the darlings because they beat the Packers the last week of the season to knock the Packers out of the playoffs, and people were like, we're really high on this Lions team. I was one of them. I was super high on them, and then they actually just really took that next step. I do have a quick question before we leave the NFC North for Brandon. So you have the Vikings at 10-7 and the Bears at 7-10. By the end of the season, do you feel that J.J. McCarthy should be regarded as a higher level quarterback than Caleb Williams?
I think so, especially if Minnesota finishes at 10-7, and it's largely because of J.J. McCarthy. Like I do think that's a conversation that should definitely take place because I do feel like out of all the quarterbacks that were drafted this past season, or last year now, like I get it, he was hurt, but like I feel like he's a guy that really doesn't get a lot of attention. Like you hear a lot of talk about Caleb, obviously Jaden Daniels, warranted, Drake May, Michael Penix. Like you don't really hear a lot about JJ McCarthy. So I think if that holds true and that happens, then absolutely, I think there should definitely be discussion.
Okay, I was just curious because you had obviously you were talking about how around Caleb you mostly have everything you need is going to be on Caleb, and then obviously we know that there's everything pretty much around JJ McCarthy. They were a 14-win team last year, and they didn't really take any steps back roster-wise. So I was just curious if what your idea was on that. Okay. That was the NFC North. Unless anyone else has any ideas, thoughts, anything on the NFC North, we all have the Packers winning. And by the sounds of it, we all had the Packers winning the NFC North pre-Micah too. So we were kind of in lockstep. Everyone feels like the Packers should take that next step this year, even before they got one of the best players in the league. And then we all have the Lions in the playoffs. Timmy and Brandon, do you guys have them in the playoffs, the Vikings, or are they right on the outside?
I have them right on the outside.
Right on the outside, Timmy.
I have them as a playoff team, 7 seed.
Yeah, oh yeah, you had them as a 7. That's right. So they're competing, and then Kyle and I have the Bears pretty much competing for a playoff spot and being right in that as well. So it's going to be a competitive division, the most competitive division in all of football, in my personal opinion. Now that the Browns are not going to be as competitive, unless we'll talk about them here very soon. See if anyone has them actually being competitive. Shador, Andrew Luck, Sanders might be able to turn the Browns around, but. This Warner Brothas Podcast with Timmy, Kyle, and Brandon on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all Warner Brothas Podcasts. We're coming with videos early and often, getting a bunch of content out. We've been going through a lot of stuff with getting ready for this NFL season to begin. When you guys will be seeing this, you'll be only about 12 to 14 hours away from the NFL season starting. So Warner Brothas Podcast, we'll be seeing you guys again very soon.